From the cold observation decks of the Drillari mothership, the humans looked impossibly small, a fragile congregation of flesh and metal adrift in the outer rim's storm-racked void. Lightning tore across plasma clouds, magnetic whirlpools lashing at the hulls of abandoned stations. From our sensors, the humans should have been insignificant, mere sparks in the shadow of interstellar empires. Yet even before they acted, we felt the weight of something impossible stirring in them. For centuries, humans had begged. Across hyperlanes, across centuries, their messages were petitions, cries for aid that shimmered weakly in the attention of more advanced species. They were the galaxy's underlings, the small ones who endured pity, who flinched at threats, who clung to survival as if mere existence were its own triumph. We observed with detached curiosity, expecting desperation. Instead, we witnessed composure, a calm almost alien in its steadiness, threading through their every movement as they navigated asteroid belts and magnetic storms. The distress signal came from an uncharted sector, a flicker of vulnerability in a galaxy so accustomed to pretense. Drillari commanders anticipated routine aid, their warships aligning for escort and protection. But the humans did not ask. They arrived as a force that bent known laws. Hulls shimmering, cloaking and uncloaking, energy discharges bending around shields like light itself obeyed their command. Before we could assess their strength, entire squadrons were disarmed, disabled, or evaporated by precision strikes. It was neither cruelty nor recklessness. It was inevitability. We observed them coordinate with an uncanny synchronicity, a pattern impossible to trace to any known neural link. Commands were issued, responses executed, movement predicted across multiple battlefronts with uncanny foresight. Their mercy, cold and methodical, was as startling as their firepower. Civilians were spared, abandoned colonies left untouched, alien combatants permitted to retreat. Yet humans advanced, unyielding, shaping the battlefield like sculptors carving inevitability from chaos. From our vantage, we began to understand a terrifying truth. Humanity had ceased to plead for help. They had abandoned the supplicant's posture that had defined them for eons. In their stead, a presence had arisen, unyielding, precise and merciless in execution, yet restrained by some principle beyond our understanding. Fear rippled through the Drillari ranks as they realized resistance was not optional. These creatures were not simply strong, they were a reckoning, the embodiment of strategy, instinct, and raw adaptability fused into one form. Whispers traverse the mothership. They anticipate everything, every maneuver. Ships recalibrated defenses, scanning fields widened, yet nothing could fully measure the humans' advance. Every vector predicted was already countered. Every offensive strike met with a response before the thought of it had fully formed. It was as if the humans were both particle and wave, a quantum uncertainty that defied comprehension. And then the final shock came, not in the form of destruction, but in what they left untouched. Structures still stood. Alien forces that could have been annihilated were allowed to retreat, dazed but alive. The humans did not conquer for dominance. They demonstrated capability for something infinitely more terrifying. Omnipotence governed by principle, not instinctive cruelty. From our decks, the Drillari murmured amongst themselves in disbelief. Their histories, their technologies, their greatest generals, all now seemed insufficient against a species that had learned, evolved, and mastered not just the tools of war, but the psychology of the cosmos itself. Humans no longer existed to be patronized, ignored, or pitied. They existed to command awe, to be feared, to define a new measure of possibility in the galaxy. And as their fleets receded into the darkness beyond the storms, leaving both wreckage and untouched colonies in their wake, the last thought lingered on every alien sensor and in every mind aboard our mothership. The humans had awoken. What had been small, fragile, and begging had become unstoppable. What had been subject had become sovereign. And in the silence after the storm, we understood. This was only the beginning. The observation decks went dark. The humans vanished beyond sensor range, but the echo of their arrival remained, a ripple that would not fade. Across the outer rim, a single realization spread. The galaxy's calculations had failed. Humanity was no longer seeking help. They had become a force the cosmos itself would have to fear. And somewhere in the deep void, the first cracks of dread appeared in every alien mind that had dared to watch. What would they do next? Even across light years, the ripple of humanity's presence was unmistakable. Across the outer rim, a single realization spread. The galaxy's calculations had failed. Humanity was no longer seeking help. They had become a force the cosmos itself would have to fear. And somewhere in the deep void, the first cracks of dread appeared in every alien mind that had dared to watch. What would they do next? Even across light years, the ripple of humanity's presence was unmistakable. Data streams from the far-flung systems of the outer spiral twisted and quivered as if in response to some invisible gravitational pulse. The scifi, who prided themselves on cold logic and intellect, were the first to notice. Subtle anomalies appeared in their networks, vessels traversing regions faster than light should permit, formations of ships that reacted before attacks occurred, trajectories that violated every calculation known to their mathematics. At first, the scifi suspected sensor errors, cosmic radiation interference, or even sabotage by rival factions. Yet every pattern repeated. Every engagement, every maneuver, every decision the humans made fit a logic that was simultaneously comprehensible and incomprehensible. Observers whispered that humans were a paradox, frail, vulnerable in appearance, yet capable of bending natural law itself without apparent effort. The contested mining colony of Rethos 9 became the stage for the galaxy's latest revelation. 2 centuries of disputes, of entrenched claims, and generations of fortified orbital platforms were met not with formal declaration, not with diplomacy, not even with the customary threats, but with silence. Then humans arrived. They struck with precision, surgical enough to erase military installations without collapsing civilian infrastructure. Orbital cannons were disabled in the instant before firing. Defense grids unraveled not through brute force, but through anticipation, like a predator knowing its prey's next thought. Alien commanders, observing from distant fleets, murmured words that trembled with disbelief. Instinctive strategy. A species that did not learn from fear or aggression, but from principle, from some internal metric that the galaxy had never conceived. Even more disconcerting was their coordination. Humans communicated in a manner that suggested shared consciousness, not through radio or optical signals, but through something deeper, subtler, ineffable. Ships adjusted to one another as though guided by a single mind, responding instantaneously to threats and opportunities alike. No alien tactician could map their thought processes. No predictive model could capture their intentions. The restraint the humans exhibited was almost terrifying. Not a single civilian lost life. Industrial structures and habitation modules remained intact. The scifi had long believed that superior species measured success by domination and attrition. The humans proved an uncomfortable truth. True mastery lay in selective action, in restraint as much as power, in knowing what to destroy and what to leave untouched. Rumors spread faster than the human's own movement. Across the outer rim and into the core, ships, colonies, and listening posts detected their arrival. Each observation sparked the same realization. These were not creatures merely surviving. They were shaping the cosmos as though it were a playground designed for their exploration. The galaxy watched, stunned, as humans converted conflict into education, strategy into artistry, and restraint into a new form of authority. Alien war councils convened in urgency. The scifi, with all their pride and intellect, questioned whether this was evolution, mutation, or something altogether alien. Every simulation, every tactical model failed to predict their behavior. Even when humans appeared to act randomly, the effect was deliberate. Outcomes engineered with foresight and adaptability that no other species possessed. From observation platforms, we recorded the silent awe in alien fleets. Human ships moved like living organisms, anticipating not just the present but the unfolding future. Rival species paused, reluctant to engage. It was no longer a question of survival. Humans had become the measure by which survival itself would be judged. And yet, despite their dominance in strategy and technology, humans remained enigmatic. They did not declare war. They did not boast. They did not demand homage. They simply existed in perfect balance with their environment, a presence both commanding and unobtrusive, reshaping the rules without ever announcing their intentions. The scifi's finest minds debated in sleepless hours. Were humans calculating every action to the last atom, or were they guided by intuition that defied computation? Some argued that it did not matter. Observation alone sufficed. A species that could dismantle centuries of entrenched defenses without unnecessary destruction had revealed an evolutionary leap the galaxy could neither ignore nor predict. By the time the humans withdrew from Rethos 9, leaving behind intact colonies, unscathed civilians, and dismantled orbital fortifications, alien observers were left with only uncertainty and awe. Their presence had not merely altered the battlefield, they had rewritten expectations. The whisper of their potential spread like a contagion. Across sensor grids, across fleets and listening posts, the singular question remained: what would these humans do next? And in that question, the galaxy sensed the first tremors of fear. For the species that had once begged for aid now moved with intent, principle, and mastery. The future was no longer something the galaxy controlled, it was something the humans would define. And as the observation decks fell silent, the last thought echoing through every alien mind was unanimous. The humans were no longer small. The humans were no longer weak. The humans were inevitable. The sensors trembled long before the humans arrived. Koroth Prime, jewel of the Outer Rim and pride of the Korothian Confederacy, had prepared for what they assumed would be a routine suppression of insurgents, a minor challenge against a fledgling species rumored to be more pest than threat. Alien fleets amassed, coordinated across 3 star systems, energy grids humming in anticipation. Every admiral aboard the command vessels exuded confidence. Every soldier trained for swift, overwhelming superiority. They had done this 1,000 times before, and yet they did not know the species they faced. The humans arrived quietly, their ships small, unassuming, almost fragile when viewed from afar. Yet the instant they entered Korothian space, the galaxy watched as expectation unraveled. Orbital defenses, designed to obliterate entire battle groups in seconds, folded like paper under adaptive maneuvers. Shields that were said to predict incoming fire instead flared in futile response as the humans anticipated, countered, and redirected attacks with a precision that defied logic. From the observation decks, the alien commanders whispered with disbelief. "They are rewriting physics," muttered one, scanning the tactical display, as human drones mirrored and then improved upon Korothian strategies. For the first time in centuries, an enemy adapted faster than they could calculate. It was as if the humans were learning not from data, not from experience, but from some instinctive comprehension of combat itself, an ability to see patterns in chaos and act before chaos existed. Then came the drones, self-replicating, morphing, mimicking the techniques of every attacking vessel. One ship would fire, the next would anticipate the defense, adjust formation, and neutralize it. Another would appear where no humans existed moments before, its actions perfectly synchronized. From every angle, from every sensor, the humans seemed omnipresent, yet nowhere, like ghosts bound by iron and neural precision. Karathian commanders, masters of centuries of warfare, stared at their displays in disbelief. Entire squadrons surrendered before battle even fully began, immobilized not by force but by tactical inevitability. Ships that should have annihilated human positions were captured intact, their crews disarmed, bewildered, and alive. Not one human casualty was reported in the initial engagements. The humans, so few in number, dominated an entire theater with efficiency that bordered on supernatural. It was audacity, yes, but also ingenuity. Each maneuver was a lesson in adaptability, each strike a proof of calculation and creativity. The humans did not merely defend, they dictated the tempo of combat, bending reality to fit the parameters of their design. Alien fleets learned too late. The humans were predators, not in strength alone, but in anticipation, in foresight, in an almost instinctive mastery of variables no other species could track simultaneously. Even the civilians on Karath Prime, watching from orbital stations and city screens, sensed the impossible unfolding. They saw not a fight, but choreography, ships dancing through fire, defensive turrets rendered impotent, alien commanders paralyzed by a strategy that seemed to anticipate every fear, every desire, every calculation they possessed. And through it all, humans advanced not with malice, but with intent. Destruction was applied only where necessary. Infrastructure remained intact, population centers untouched. The Karathian High Command convened in emergency session. Simulations, history, tactical doctrine, all were useless against the humans. They debated feverishly, but every plan was already anticipated, every counter already mitigated. From the observation decks of allied fleets, even distant species murmured disbelief. Perhaps humans were not to be coddled, not to be dismissed. Perhaps this fragile species, long underestimated, was the apex predator no one had prepared for. And then, as if the lesson had been imparted, the humans withdrew. Karath Prime remained intact, its cities untouched, yet every decision, every leader, subtly influenced by human intervention. The galaxy understood the truth in whispers. Humans were not merely survivors. They were arbiters, rewriting the rules of engagement without leaving footprints of conquest, yet leaving imprints of inevitability. Observers recorded it with awe bordering on terror. Across command decks, fleets, and distant listening posts, the conclusion was unanimous. The humans had arrived not to participate in the galaxy's hierarchy, but to redefine it. The stories would spread from one system to the next, carried by whispers and sensor logs. A species small in number, yet colossal in ingenuity, capable of reshaping the battlefield with nothing more than foresight, precision, and an unwavering calm. And as human vessels slipped back into the darkness of interstellar space, leaving behind both astonishment and subtle influence, alien historians and commanders alike realized a terrifying certainty. The galaxy had misjudged humanity for centuries. They had not just survived the test of Korath Prime, they had shattered every assumption, rewritten every doctrine, and emerged as the measure of what power, strategy, and intelligence truly meant. Yet even as alien minds struggled to comprehend, the humans' next move remained unknown. Would they return, expand, retreat? The galaxy could only wait and fear. For the species that had once been dismissed as weak had become a force capable of dictating not just the outcome of war, but the very trajectory of interstellar civilization itself. The observation decks went dark, leaving only the ghostly hum of sensors tracking empty space. But every fleet, every command, every species knew the same truth. The humans were not merely present, they were inevitable. And the next act, whatever it might be, would not wait for permission. Whispers traveled faster than warp currents. Across the core and into the outer rim, sensor grids and observation posts detected anomalies that defied comprehension. The humans, small, audacious, and unyielding, had shifted the equilibrium of the galaxy. Their victories at Rethos 9 and Korath Prime were no longer secret, no longer isolated. Word of their precision, restraint, and strategic genius spread faster than light, carried in data streams, intercepted messages, and the fearful rumors of alien commanders who had glimpsed the impossible. Some species did not approach out of admiration. Fear was a more honest currency than respect. The Thaliarians, famed for their subtle manipulations and mastery of interstellar diplomacy, were among the first to test the waters. A delegation arrived in the unassuming way the humans had accustomed the galaxy to, silently, with no fanfare, hovering in neutral space near a human fleet. Their messages carried the grand promises typical of their kind: joint ventures, shared technology, advantageous trade, and, subtly embedded, the insinuation that humans could gain far more from cooperation than confrontation. The humans' response, observed from afar, unsettled the Thaliarians. There was no boast, no eager acceptance, no sign of fear or avarice. Instead, the humans replied with calm deliberation. They accepted only those terms that aligned with principle: fairness, efficiency, and advancement that benefited more than themselves. They did not bargain for wealth or influence. They did not wield power for personal gain. Their conditions elevated morality over ambition, logic over deceit. The Thaliarians, accustomed to every species seeking advantage first, were confounded. Alien eyes monitored as tentative alliances took form under the humans' guidance. Old conflicts paused, as if held in suspension by some unseen gravitational field. Warring factions observed the humans' decisions, and reconsidered strategies hardened over centuries. Agreements were struck, not through coercion or threat, but through the sheer clarity of human reasoning and the demonstration of incorruptible competence. It was unsettling. For centuries, the galaxy had measured power by domination, subjugation, or terror. And yet, here were humans, small in fleet size and numbers, shifting alliances, reconciling rivalries, and inspiring loyalty without firing a single weapon. The Thaliarians, masters of subtle influence, noted the strange paradox. Humans did not intimidate with displays of force. They commanded loyalty by merit, strategy, and principle. Across star systems, humans' mere presence reshaped politics. Fleets altered courses not because of human threat, but because of human example. Diplomats paused mid-negotiation, reconsidering options previously considered immutable. Entire species, once locked in interminable hostilities, found pause in their rage, a subtle nudge toward compromise. The galaxy's equilibrium, once rigid and calculable, trembled in the wake of human influence. From the observation decks of alien command ships, a growing dread settled. These humans were not seeking conquest, not seeking dominion, not even seeking glory. They were architects of order, redefining how power could be applied, enforcing fairness across a galaxy that had long relied on fear as a currency. Every action was deliberate, every interaction measured, and every decision seemed to ripple across light years with consequences that left the galaxy reeling. The Thaliarians realized a truth that made even their seasoned diplomats uneasy. Humans did not need to dominate through terror. They did not need intimidation or displays of overwhelming force. Their competence alone, strategic, moral, and intellectual, was enough to compel loyalty, respect, and cooperation. In observing them, the Thaliarians felt the first shiver of insecurity. A species that applied power so judiciously, so consistently, could not be predicted, manipulated, or controlled. The humans' inscrutability added to the unease. Nothing about them suggested weakness or recklessness, yet every interaction suggested superiority beyond brute force. Allies and rivals alike struggled to discern whether the humans were entirely rational, entirely instinctive, or something else altogether, a species operating on principles the galaxy had never conceived. And then, almost imperceptibly, the humans shifted the balance. Systems once embroiled in centuries of conflict paused. tentative truces emerged. Negotiations once considered impossible were undertaken in cautious optimism. Everywhere observers looked, the humans were the fulcrum on which the galaxy's future now pivoted. The last thought echoed across alien minds as the humans withdrew from the Thalirian sector, leaving no fleets behind, no occupation forces, no warnings, only the undeniable truth. The galaxy was beginning to bend toward them. They did not conquer, they did not intimidate, they inspired. And in that inspiration, fear and awe intertwined. What would come next? Would the humans' principles extend to the hostile sectors? Could any species resist the pull of competence so absolute it redefined alliances, politics, and strategy itself? Alien observers did not know, but one certainty persisted. Humans had moved beyond the need to fight to assert dominance. They had redefined the game entirely, and the galaxy had no choice but to watch. Not all species welcomed the rise of humanity. While fleets bowed and alliances formed across the outer rim and core, shadows stirred in corners of the galaxy, where influence was wielded in silence. The Zircani Cabal, a consortium of hidden manipulators whose hands had directed wars and trade for centuries, observed humanity with growing unease. What the galaxy hailed as ingenuity and restraint, they recognized as a threat. A species that could bend physics, anticipate strategy, and reshape political landscapes could not be tolerated. From their hidden stations, cloaked deep within uncharted starfields, the Zircani plotted. Stealth fleets assembled like specters, invisible to conventional sensors. Strike units armed with virus-like weapons, programmed to infiltrate ships, cripple AI cores, and sever communication links, slipped toward human-controlled sectors. Their goal was surgical: eliminate the rising apex before it could consolidate. To the Zircani, it seemed the galaxy's calculus was simple: remove the anomaly before it altered the equation. Yet the humans anticipated what no one else could. Observers on distant monitoring posts recorded fleets vanishing from the predicted vectors. Ambush points were countered before the first shot was fired. Systems designed to cripple ships were neutralized instantaneously, as if preempted by foresight. Zircani agents, hiding in shadows, were captured, their plans undone without confrontation. Every strike designed to cripple humanity instead became a testament to human ingenuity. The alien narrators struggled to describe what they saw. Entire fleets folded as if guided by unseen hands. Weapons designed for preemption became mere spectacle against defenses humans had deployed with precision. It was more than survival, it was a statement. Humanity would not merely endure, they would define the terms of engagement for all who sought to challenge them. The Zircani Cabal, masters of secrecy and deception, were forced to reckon with an uncomfortable truth. Every ambush, every hidden fleet, every technological surprise they unleashed was not only anticipated, it was outmatched. Human response did not rely solely on technology, though their countermeasures were formidable. There was a pattern, a principle that the Zircani could not decipher. It was not instinct, not simple calculation, but something that transcended both. Humanity operated on a scale of perception that rendered conventional strategy meaningless. Across the galaxy, alien observers recorded in disbelief and awe. The humans' foresight, their ability to anticipate hidden threats, and their measured execution redefined what survival could mean. No longer did a species need overwhelming force to assert dominance. Humanity had demonstrated that mastery over information, probability, and principle was sufficient to make the improbable inevitable. The aftermath left the Zircani stunned. Their fleets intact but compromised, their plans exposed and nullified. They recognized a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget. Humans were not merely dangerous, they were a cosmic force that could not be ignored. Every attempt at sabotage became a blueprint for failure. Every strategy designed to exploit weakness became a demonstration of futility. Alien commanders, narrating in hushed tones, compared the humans to a force of nature. They did not conquer by intimidation, nor did they retaliate recklessly. Every human action was a measured test, a proof of capability, and a subtle demonstration of principle. They had evolved beyond survival, beyond strategy, beyond mere dominance. Humanity had become the measure by which the galaxy judged power, wisdom, and inevitability. And yet, even in victory, humans remained inscrutable. There was no boast, no flourish, no broadcast of triumph. They merely reasserted their presence and withdrew, leaving alien fleets, Zirconi and others alike, to absorb the full weight of comprehension. The galaxy watched and wondered, how far could this species extend? Could any force withstand the precision, foresight, and principle that guided them? The question itself became a source of unease across the stars. From hidden vantage points, the Zirconi documented their defeat in silence, fear threading through their calculations. They had underestimated humanity, as all had, and they had learned too late. Humans were not merely adaptive, not merely resilient, they were inevitability incarnate. A force against which the galaxy's long-held strategies were powerless, a species whose existence demanded recognition and respect, whether welcomed or feared. As the human fleets vanished into the black, leaving systems secure, fleets intact but humbled, and agents captured without resistance, alien observers felt a chilling awareness. Humanity had transcended ordinary engagement. They had converted ambush into revelation, threat into testament, and conflict into proof of principle. The last observation, echoed across countless fleets and listening posts, carried the weight of prophecy. The shadows of the galaxy could plot, conceal, and strike, but the humans had anticipated, countered, and endured. No hidden hand, no cabal, no fleet in stealth could claim supremacy against a species that had mastered the unseen. And in that realization, the galaxy trembled, not with immediate destruction, but with the quiet terror of inevitability. Humanity was no longer a species to be manipulated or dismissed. Humanity was the standard by which the cosmos itself would now measure strategy, foresight, and survival. By the time the galaxy fully acknowledged humanity, the humans no longer moved as a species of reaction. They moved as architects of consequence. Borders that had been contested for millennia were suddenly respected. Treaties once negotiated through intimidation or coercion were honored, yet always on human terms. Alien observers recorded with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. How could a species so seemingly fragile command the obedience of fleets, the attention of empires, and the acquiescence of rival worlds without displaying dominance through terror? From observation platforms orbiting reconstructed systems, alien narrators described a paradox that defied comprehension. Humans wielded fear without cruelty, power without oppression, and influence without tyranny. Entire star clusters bore witness to their interventions, yet none were subjugated. Planets once ravaged by centuries of war were healed, not occupied. Terraforming arrays reshaped desolate worlds into habitable zones, and medicine spread across populations previously abandoned by other species. Alien customs, traditions, and cultures were preserved, as if humans understood that respect could be enforced without coercion. Observers whispered that the human strategy was inscrutable. They did not conquer to claim wealth, territory, or prestige. They intervened to stabilize, to teach, to guide. Entire alien civilizations, whose histories had been defined by cycles of exploitation, suddenly found themselves learning restraint, logic, and foresight from a species they had once considered primitive. And yet, there was no arrogance in the humans' actions, no announcement, no spectacle, only results that rippled across light years, shifting the balance of power without a single overt declaration of dominion. In battle, humans could annihilate an enemy in hours, yet they often chose negotiation first. Entire fleets capable of overwhelming superior technology were redirected to diplomacy, and strategic strikes were employed only when other options were exhausted. Their morality was baffling, alien observers admitted, a species that understood both the value of life and the necessity of decisive action. The apex of evolution, it seemed, was not measured in strength alone, but in the judicious application of power, in the fusion of intellect, empathy, and foresight. Alien historians recorded fleets and populations that had once trembled at the arrival of the humans. No longer was the galaxy reacting to humanity. They were studying them, learning from them, and recalibrating centuries of assumptions. Commands and protocols evolved as alien fleets observed human tactics, diplomacy, and reconstruction efforts. Humanity's influence was subtle yet omnipresent, like gravity itself, felt everywhere yet impossible to grasp fully. The humans' presence shifted political structures as effortlessly as it healed star systems. Old rivalries paused. Tentative truces became long-term agreements. Fleets that had once engaged in near-constant skirmishes stood down, not out of fear, but because humans had demonstrated a mastery that rendered conflict inefficient, unnecessary, or even irrelevant. Their interventions were surgical, precise, and yet suffused with an ethics that alien observers could scarcely understand. In quiet observation rooms across the galaxy, the paradox of human restraint and omnipotence dominated conversations. "They could have taken everything," whispered one Zrinian admiral, eyes fixed on reconstruction reports. The remark carried awe, envy, and fear in equal measure. Across species, a new term entered alien lexicons: humans as the standard of measured power, of strategic morality, and of inevitable influence. Even in sectors untouched by human fleets, their reputation alone shaped behavior. Politicians recalculated policies, traders adjusted routes, militaries modified protocols, all in anticipation of human oversight, even if distant. It was as if the galaxy collectively sensed that their actions were under scrutiny by a species whose intelligence and moral code rendered the old rules obsolete. Humanity's influence did not crush autonomy, it elevated it, forcing species to act better, to think deeper, to govern with foresight. Observers marveled at the culmination of all they had witnessed. Humans had transcended survival, transcended dominance, and transcended ambition. They had become, in effect, the galaxy's measure of possibility itself.
Alien fleets, historians, and strategists recorded every decision, every intervention, every diplomatic overture, not as threats to counter, but as lessons to study. And in every recorded instance, one truth remained undeniable. Humans acted as though they were shaping not just events, but the very ethics and logic of the universe itself. And yet, even as humanity's influence expanded, the humans themselves remained inscrutable. They neither claimed glory nor demanded recognition. They moved through the stars as if guided by an internal compass, applying power, mercy, and foresight with a certainty no alien species could contest. It was impossible to predict their next actions, not because of deception, but because their decisions originated from a level of principle, intelligence, and morality the galaxy had not encountered before. As the observation decks fell silent across countless species, one sentiment echoed universally: the humans had ascended. They were no longer merely participants in galactic affairs. They were arbiters of order, of justice, and of inevitability. And as fleets recalibrated, planets rebuilt, and empires reconsidered ancient conflicts, the lingering question persisted: what would humanity do next, now that they had become the measure of all possibility? Beyond the map edges of the galaxy, where light itself bent in impossible ways, and the laws of physics became suggestions rather than absolutes, humanity advanced. From our observation decks, the void appeared chaotic, lethal, a place where even the most advanced alien technology faltered, and minds unprepared for its anomalies would break. Yet humans approached with an unflinching courage that seemed to mock danger itself. Their vessels, sleek and adaptive, bent and reshaped in response to gravitational distortions, spatial eddies, and temporal anomalies. Crew members learned, improvised, and evolved at rates rivaling the most sophisticated AI constructs of the core civilizations. Alien observers whispered in awe: "They do not fear the unknown," said one scifi analyst, voice trembling. Every anomaly, every unpredictable event became a stage upon which humans demonstrated ingenuity. Interdimensional predators, long considered untouchable by other species, were approached not with panic, but with strategy.
Humans deployed scientific instruments alongside weapons arrays, combining diplomacy with empirical analysis, always probing, always calculating, always respecting the logic of the cosmos, even as they bent it to their will. It was a revelation. Observers had long measured evolution by physical or technological adaptation, but humanity, in venturing into the infinite, revealed another kind: evolution of intellect, of principle, of decision-making under uncertainty. Every encounter, whether with hostile entities, warped space, or phenomena that defied description, became a study in mastery. Ships that should have been lost to gravitational storms emerged intact. Crews who should have been overwhelmed adapted, learned, and thrived. Humans were not merely surviving, they were shaping the rules by which the void itself could be navigated. From alien observation posts, the commentary was a mixture of fascination and terror. Zirconi analysts, historians, and strategists all noted the same phenomenon. Humans treated the cosmos as neither enemy nor resource, but as a medium for refinement, exploration, and principle. They did not conquer, they comprehended. They did not dominate, they demonstrated capability so absolute that entire fleets, entire civilizations, and entire systems paused in awe, reconsidering the meaning of presence, power, and influence. Every interdimensional predator met with humans adapted or retreated, sometimes through direct diplomacy, sometimes through ingenuity, always under the implicit understanding that these fragile-appearing creatures were not bound by fear. Alien narrators struggled to describe the paradox. Humans were small, vulnerable in appearance, yet so vast in capability that the void itself seemed to bend to their methodical advance. In observing them, one could see the evolution not of body or weapon, but of principle, the codification of foresight, empathy, and intelligence as tools of survival and influence. Even as humans faced challenges that would annihilate any other species, they emerged victorious. Each trial in the infinite void became proof not of luck, but of mastery. Sensor logs recorded fleets adapting faster than predicted, crews improvising with the speed of thought, and strategies unfolding with a logic that no alien model could fully simulate. The galaxy watched in disbelief. The species that had once begged for aid was now the benchmark against which all life would be measured. And yet, for all their triumphs, humans remained inscrutable. They did not broadcast victories, they did not claim dominion. From the observation decks, we noted only their calm, deliberate movements, their steady focus on understanding, adapting, and mastering the unknown. Their presence in the infinite expanse was not conquest, it was assertion of principle, the demonstration that intellect and morality could navigate chaos where brute force would fail. The effect on alien observers was profound. Awe had replaced fear, reverence had replaced disbelief. Humans were no longer simply another species in the galaxy. They had become the standard. Every fleet, every scientist, every diplomat now measured their own capabilities against the humans' achievements in the void. Humanity had transcended ordinary survival, reshaping not just galaxies, but the perception of what evolution, intelligence, and morality could achieve when applied without compromise. And in that uncharted, infinite expanse, humans continued their journey, undaunted, unbowed, a force that simultaneously inspired awe, fear, and hope. The galaxy, watching from the peripheries, could not predict them, could not restrain them, and could not ignore them. Humanity was no longer measured by weakness or strength, by fleet size or weaponry. They were measured by principle, by mastery, by the capacity to define the infinite itself. As observation decks fell silent across alien systems, one thought echoed through every mind. The humans were no longer reactive. They were inevitable. In the void, as everywhere else, they set the standard. And the galaxy waited, breathless, for the next act of a species that had become the measure of all possibility. From distant moons beyond the reach of most fleets, alien observers recorded the enduring presence of humanity. What had once been a species small, fragile, and underestimated had become the axis upon which the galaxy pivoted. Even in silence, without fanfare or proclamation, humans commanded attention. Ships slowed in orbit near their installations. Diplomats altered their speeches mid-sentence when human envoys arrived, subtle pauses betraying a mixture of respect and apprehension. Across systems, children on alien worlds dreamed of Earth's legacy. Stories of ingenuity and courage whispered as both myth and history. Alien historians debated endlessly. Were humans to be revered, feared, or simply studied? Every culture struggled to categorize the phenomenon.
Humans had reshaped interstellar politics not through domination, but through principle. They had redefined the ethics of conflict, diplomacy, and survival. Entire civilizations sought to imitate human strategy, to emulate their morality, to mirror the audacity with which they had approached every challenge. Yet no imitation could capture the instinctive genius that flowed through humanity's decisions, the seamless blend of foresight, courage, and principle that distinguished them. From the observation decks of fleets and orbital stations, aliens marveled at humanity's reach. Reconstruction of worlds ravaged by centuries of war was guided with precision, yet respect remained for local customs and traditions. Disputes that had persisted for generations were mediated with subtlety, fairness, and efficiency. Exploration of uncharted regions continued, each journey revealing not only the unknown, but a methodology for confronting uncertainty itself. Humanity did not merely expand, they elevated the galaxy, setting new standards for survival, diplomacy, and morality. The paradox of their influence was almost unbearable to comprehend. Humans possessed the power to annihilate fleets, raise planets, and enforce compliance, yet chose restraint and calculated mercy. They wielded authority without tyranny, commanded loyalty without coercion, and inspired both hope and fear without overt threat. Alien narrators struggle to find language adequate to describe them. The closest translation of their phenomenon was a term without equivalence, a species that had redefined the possible, a standard by which all others were inevitably measured. Across countless worlds, the imprint of humanity was visible. Merchant guilds recalculated trade routes in anticipation of human oversight. Military academies studied their tactics not as guides to combat alone, but as lessons in strategy, ethics, and foresight. Political institutions adjusted policies, considering human principles as benchmarks of fairness and competence. Even in remote, isolated sectors, whispers of their deeds inspired entire generations. The galaxy had not merely observed a species evolve, they had witnessed the emergence of a living paradigm. And yet, humans themselves remained inscrutable. They did not declare dominion, they did not seek adoration or obedience. Their actions were deliberate, measured, and purposeful, but always guided by principle rather than ambition.
In every intervention, every act of reconstruction, every expedition into the unknown, humans demonstrated that the apex of evolution might not reside in weaponry or numbers, but in intellect, morality, and courage applied with precision. Alien fleets, scholars, and diplomats all recognized the same truth. The universe might be infinite, but humanity had become its defining force. Their presence transformed expectation into action, fear into respect, and chaos into opportunity. To encounter humanity was to confront both inspiration and unease, to witness a species that had taken fragile beginnings and reshaped the galaxy itself into a stage for mastery and principle. Even as humans remained distant, their influence radiated across every star system. The galaxy understood that humans were not simply participants in history, they were authors, arbiters, and exemplars. Their legacy was not myth, but reality. A species that embodied adaptability, courage, and morality beyond precedent, shaping the trajectory of civilizations and the future of the cosmos itself. And as alien observers recorded the final notes of their logs, one sentiment resonated across the stars.
The humans had transcended their origins. They had evolved beyond survival, beyond conquest, and beyond expectation. They had become the measure by which the galaxy itself now calculated possibility. In the quiet expanse, amid stars that stretched to infinity, the humans' presence lingered as both warning and inspiration. A reminder that the universe, vast and unknowable, had been irrevocably defined by a species that began as fragile but emerged as inevitable. The final thought lingered in every alien mind. The universe might be infinite, but humanity had become its axis, its standard, and its defining force. And in that realization, the galaxy understood both awe and fear. In every corner of the cosmos, humans were the benchmark, the measure, and the ultimate lesson in what it meant to be alive, intelligent, and unconquerable.